In this video, we're going to replace the driver's side taillight lens on my 2005 VW Golf MK4. Should be easy, right? Well, it's not easy. I actually did this job yesterday, and I made such a serious mistake that I have to do it over again today. So this time, I'm going to film it with very detailed instructions so the next guy doesn't make the same mistake that I did. Start by opening the trunk and then opening the access panel on the driver's rear side. To keep that door from fighting you every step of the way, just hold it back with a little spring clamp. Now my car is equipped with a monsoon radio, and if yours is also equipped, you're going to find an amplifier in here. So your car may or may not have this. If it's there, the first step is to unplug two audio connectors at the bottom of the amplifier. Now the secret here is that unlike most automotive connectors, these have spring clips both on the top and the bottom. If you don't know that and you're just pressing the spring clip on the top, you're going to have a very, very hard time removing these. Okay, now the next thing is to unscrew the amplifier from the bracket. So I'm pointing to the first screw down here at the bottom. There's two screws, both number 2 Phillips, and here's the second one at the top. Now the problem you run into here is that a standard number 2 Phillips screwdriver is too long to fit into the opening. And we're measuring it here, and you can see it's less than 9 inches. Additionally, I think the screws on my amp had been Loctited, and I couldn't budge them with that screwdriver. I had to use a right angle to get them started. Okay, the amp is out. There's the shorter screwdriver, and we have a magnetic screw holding tray to contain all of the screws and bolts we're going to remove in this procedure. The next thing we have to remove is a 10mm hex bolt. It's sort of in the center of that cavity. To get to it, you'll need to set up a 3/8 inch ratchet with about 9 inches of extensions and a 10mm socket. The next 10mm we have to remove is hidden behind this audio connector. Now that connector is not plugged into anything on my car, so whatever that goes to, I don't have. Yours may actually be plugged into something. If not, then it's just snapped into a holder. That plug and that wiring harness is hiding the screw we have to remove. Now here I've got it unclipped from its holder, and you just begin to see the 10mm bolt. Next we have two Torx 25 screws, and I'm pointing here to the first one. Second one is a little closer to the lens. None of these screws and bolts, well, maybe one of them. Other than that, none of them are obvious. Okay, we've got all of the hex bolts and screws removed from the lower bracket. Let's try to get it out of there. Okay. At this point we've got 6 screws out. 2 came out of the amplifier. 4 came out of this lower bracket, and we've got the lower bracket out. Now we've got to go after this upper bracket. There's a 10mm here, here, and here. So 3 more to pull out with the ratchet. Alright, now that this is loose, bolts are out, we should be able to untangle this, or at least be aware of it. And this should just get the carpet out of the way. This should lift up and out. I don't think I can hold the camera and do it, but it's going to lift up and out because there are slots here. This is engaging, and you got to be careful to get this wire out of the way. Okay, we've got it out. Now, the reason for all of this work is that the third nut holding down the lens cap is hidden by this wiring harness, which is behind this carpet. All of this has to be pulled back so that we can pull this, unsnap this wiring harness and get to that third nut holding the lens in place. So let me do that. So at this point, it might help to look at the disgusting cracked lens I pulled out yesterday. The nuts we're trying to access, this one and this one, are easily accessible. Wouldn't have to do anything that we've done to this point to get to these two. It's this one that's blocked by the amplifier, all the metal work, the carpeting, the wiring harness. This is the one we can't get to. So the mistake I made yesterday had to do with, once I got this out, it was so filthy and disgusting. I put it aside and didn't look at it again and proceeded to put in the new one. That was my mistake. So let's go back to the car, since I'm doing this job a second time, and see what I did wrong. Okay, now regarding this carpeting, it's stuck under this piece of plastic, but you don't have to remove all this plastic piece. This can stay in place because you can just pop the carpet out of here and it comes right out, just like that. You don't have to remove this. It's also very easy to stick it back in, as I found out yesterday. So now we've got to fold this back. Probably going to need another clamp to somehow get this out of the way. Okay, so here's the insidious, frustrating part of this procedure. Besides the hidden screw that was hidden back here behind this wiring harness, the hidden 10mm, here's the lens. This is an 8mm nut right here. Here's the second one up here, easily accessible. Could have done that even without taking all this apart. But the third one is hidden behind this wiring harness right here, and the access hole is that right there, and I don't think you'll be able to pull that nut out unless you detach this wiring harness. That is not easy. Have to use a upholstery tool. Have to get to it from back here to unsnap the connector. Then we'll be able to get through this square opening to pull out the round nut. So we put down the camera and do that, and that's our next step. Okay, I've got the wiring harness unsnapped. The snap is actually right here, right next to the clamp. I've clamped the wiring harness to the carpet to get it out of the way. I have another clamp up here holding the carpet back. And now we can get through this square hole to get to the, can I even get a picture of it? Well, it's in there. That's where it is. pretty well hidden. There it is. I can just see the bottom of it right there. See it right there? That's the hidden screw. We had to go through all this work to expose it. Now let me see if I can get it out of there. Now the 8mm nuts can be removed with a nut driver. 5/16 is the same as 8mm. This one's actually a 5/16. This will work. What I recommend would be just loosening them and then taking them out by hand so that they don't drop down below where you're never going to recover them again. So just get them loose, then pull them by hand. Now we're not going to be able to get our hand through that square hole because it's way in there. So we're going to treat that one differently. To get that one, I've set up a 1/4" ratchet with a deep well 8mm socket here on the end, deep well to get through that opening. And I'm going to use one of these little magnetic inserts to hold on to that nut so that we don't drop it. So the insert goes in here. Came out of this kit which I've had for a long time. It shows you exactly how it works here on the cover. Nut and bolt is grabbed by the magnet, which is also grabbed by the socket. So I don't know if you can still get these, but this is a Craftsman set of 5, part number 94404. Very useful when you need it. Alright, let's see if I can get these. Let's loosen it up. Alright, that's loose. Get that one loose. Okay, we've got 2 out. Let's go after number 3. Now, I was really afraid of dropping that between the 2 pieces of metal yesterday and losing it forever. So let's try this. Let's try this assembly, see if it's going to work for me again. Okay, we've got it loose. I'm going to detach the ratchet and just spin it off using the extensions. Definitely a 2-hand job, but there it is. So here are all the tools that we've used to do this job so far, including a very nice troubleshooting light. Okay, now we've got to get the bulb holder unsnapped, and we should be able to just walk that lens right off of there. Let's see. Okay, I've got it unsnapped. That's another 2-hand job. The snaps are here and on the other side. Now, you don't have to disconnect the wiring harness. All we have to do is lay this back. So that's sufficient. Just lay it back just like that. Now, you'll notice I have an extra bulb in here. That's the brake light modification. I'll show you that when we put it back together. You can actually add an extra brake light. Makes the back of your car really light up when you step on the brakes very easily, just by putting a bulb in the socket and a little jumper on the other side. So that's why we've got an extra bulb here. Alright, let's see if I can get this lens out. I don't know how I'm going to do this and hold the camera, but it looks like it's loose. I don't want to drop the new one, so I'm going to put this down. Okay, she's out. Now, it was pretty filthy yesterday. I had to clean this all up and blow out all the needles and twigs and leaves and debris that had built up in there. It was unbelievable how filthy all that was. But it's clean now and we got the lens out. Okay, there's the new one. There's the old one. Now, do you see the mistake I made? When I put this filthy thing aside yesterday, I didn't give it a second look until I had put all my tools away and was ready to put this in the trash, the recycling trash. And then I realized there's a gasket here. And there are two gaskets here. One right here. One right here. And one right here. And I had failed to transfer. Of course, this was absolutely filthy and gross and disgusting yesterday. I'd failed to transfer this gasket and these little washers to the new lens. And that was my big mistake. I have an expensive Bentley repair manual. I paid something like $125 for it. It said you had to remove the rear seat trim and didn't give you any of these instructions. Of course, it didn't mention anything about transferring the gaskets from the old taillight lens to the new taillight lens. I guess guys that work in body shops know all that. I didn't. And so that was my mistake. All right, let's transfer it, put the whole thing back together, see how we make out. As I'm transferring the old gasket to the new lens, I noticed the new lens did come with two new rubber washers here, so I don't have to transfer these two old washers. I also wondered if I had lost a third washer from this nut, this bolt, but I don't see one here. Instead, I see like a bigger metal flange. I wonder if there was a new gasket in the box and I just didn't dig down deep enough. I'm gonna go check that. Boy, it sure is easier when you know all the little secrets. So let's see how long this is going to take. New one is in. I'll try to get these two nuts caught, and then we'll go after that hidden one. Okay, now I promised to show you the extra brake light bulb. All you have to do to light that bulb is make yourself up a jumper that goes from power to the bulb socket. Now when you do this, be very careful. The power is on the right side. You don't want to put it on the left side because if you do, you're going to blow fuses. So just make sure you connect this jumper to the right side of that socket and not to the left side. And there's only one pin up there, so you can't get it wrong. It's just a short little jumper. And wait till you see what these brake lights look like when we get this all back together. It's a very, very easy modification. Piece of wire, two little connectors, and a bulb. Makes a big difference. Okay, I'm going to continue on the reassembly. Now, when tightening these, going into plastic, just thumb and forefinger. It's plastic. You don't want to break it. You can't put much tension on it. Of course, you don't want water. You don't want it to leak. But no big grip here. Just thumb and forefinger. All three of them. I heard a little clunk. Probably that's enough. So while we're looking at that, my Bentley's book says you want to tighten this to 27 inch-pounds. I think that's way too tight for these, but that's what the book says, 27 inch-pounds. I was afraid to break it, so that's why I'm just doing thumb and forefinger. Always has worked for me. Never broke anything doing it that way. Okay, the next thing we have to do is to get this wiring harness. Here's our plug stuck back into this hole. So that's a two-hand job. Let's get that done. Okay, that's in. Now next we want to get this carpeting back in place. So unclip that. Try to get that all put back. Okay, that's in. Now, next it'll be the upper bracket, which is this one. Bearing in mind that these are the tabs that have to fit into the slots, and you have to be very careful over here because we've got that extra wiring harness. So okay, let's try to get this in. Here are the slots. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, I'm in those slots above, here and there. Pay attention to how this wire goes. This is going to curl and come around like this and snap into place, all in front of the bracket. We can't do that yet because it hides this screw that goes behind it. So we're going to keep this out of the way here so we can catch that screw. Alright, we got 3 to put in I guess we've got 3 to put in across the top. Okay, let's do that. Okay, we've got those 3 in. The next thing is to get this piece in. It's got to go like this because this is the piece that engages that hidden bolt over there. Like this. This is how it goes. Alright, let me get that in. Okay, there's your detail on the wiring harness. You can no longer see the bolt. And the harness did end up coming behind and underneath the bracket, swinging around to the front. The other bolt is right there, holds the 2 brackets together. Now we have 2 torque screws to put in. And torque screw locations. One is here, one is here. Alright, let's do that. Okay, the 2 torque screws are in. All that remains now is to put this amplifier back in there, screw it down, reconnect the harnesses, and test everything. Alright, let's do that. Okay, we've got the amp in. Now these connectors, remember when you're removing them that there are springs on both sides of the connector. If you're thinking it's a typical automotive connector with a spring just on one side, you'll have a lot of trouble trying to get them out. So, showing that again, let's get them plugged in and wrap this up. Okay, we have no screws left over. Everything is back together. And here are all the tools that we used. So, first thing was a 7-inch screwdriver. That's all the room you have. This is just a little over 7 inches, maybe 7 3/8. We had a T25 Torx tip. T25. Remember that right? T25. We had a 3/8 ratchet with a 9 inches of extensions. 10mm socket on the end there. We had a 1/4 inch ratchet. It's about 8.5 inches of extensions. This is an 8mm deep well on the end. So 8mm here, 10mm here. We have an 8mm, otherwise known as a 5/16 inch nut driver. And we use the ruler. Upholstery tool to pop that wiring harness out of the sidewall. We used the small magnetic insert so we didn't drop the hardware into the Netherlands. We used this really nice Bauer treble light, and we used 3 spring clamps and a magnetic tray to hold all of the screws and nuts that we took out of the side here. So that's what you need to do this job. I can tell you this, it goes a lot easier when you know what has to come out and in what order and where the 2 hidden screws are. So let's see if the brake lights still work and see if everything is still okay. Here's our 2 brake lights. Okay, blinkers. Left working. Okay, right working. Headlights. Okay. Backup lights. Working. How about the radio? Does that still work?
Yeah. You're right. Unless he does like a multi-year deal and he can make that money up next year. Right.
Okay.
24.
We're good. Hope this helps someone. Thanks for watching.